Nick was heading to the mall when he watched the driver of a black SUV run a red light and get struck by another SUV. The SUV struck the Toyota's rear tire, spinning it around and sending it dangerously close to Nick's Honda Civic. The SUV then rolled into a red SUV that was stopped on the other side of the intersection. Thankfully, nobody was hurt in the collision. All the involved drivers were thankful for copies of Nick's dashcam footage, but the police told him they'd captured the incident with their own camera on a nearby power pole. They weren't interested in Nick's dashcam footage, but they thanked him for offering it and told him about other incidents where dashcam footage had completely changed the outcome of a collision investigation. Peter watched the driver of a minivan rear-end an SUV driver who was turning into a thrift store parking lot. It seems the minivan driver hadn't been paying attention and was following the SUV too closely. Peter stopped and gave his contact info to both drivers and the responding police. Some viewers have complained that we provide too many details in our videos. By the way, the SUV driver was an elderly woman, a man was driving the minivan, and this happened at 10:42 a.m. on a Wednesday while Peter was driving his 2003 Saturn Ion 2 northwest on North Pacific Highway at 35.896 miles per hour. Jodine was headed down a highway on her way to an airport when she watched something go terribly wrong with a cement mixer truck. It seems a tire exploded, then disintegrated as the rubber flailed around and obliterated the fender. Tire debris was sent flying in every direction. Thankfully, Jodine was able to continue. This submitter was driving down a Tennessee highway when he watched a black pickup truck rear-end another pickup at full speed. Our submitter told us that the initial collision caused a pileup involving several other vehicles, some of which ended up in the ditch. He stopped to see if anybody needed help, but he told us that there were almost no injuries. He left after police and paramedics arrived, but he later emailed a copy of his dashcam footage to the police. Thomas was waiting at a traffic light when he watched a driver turn in front of oncoming traffic, forcing it to stop and causing a rear-end collision. After a white SUV was forced to stop, a gold sedan with large aftermarket wheels rear-ended the SUV, then sped off, making this a hit-and-run collision. Thomas stopped and shared his dashcam footage with the SUV driver. Sadly, the sedan's license plate number isn't visible in the video. If you have any information or can identify the vehicle, send us an email and we'll pass the info along. Jason was driving in Brooklyn when the driver of an SUV turned onto the same street, then started making a U-turn directly in front of him. Jason honked and swerved into oncoming lanes to avoid a collision by inches. He told us the other driver just continued like nothing had happened. Thankfully, he didn't find any damage when he stopped to check. This highway collision is super chaotic, and it took us a few times watching it before we figured out what was going on. Keep your eye on a gold SUV that triggers the entire incident after making an unsafe lane change. We honestly can't tell how many vehicles were involved, but the driver of the gold SUV evidently fled the scene. Enoch called 911 to report the incident and offer police his dashcam footage, but he hasn't heard from them. He wanted to shout out his son Dustin for introducing him to our channel. Thanks, Dustin. This submitter encountered a deer devil. It looks like that deer would have completely cleared the Mustang if it had timed the jump just a little bit earlier, but I sure hope it doesn't try that again. Pam was driving her Honda Civic when the driver of the SUV driving beside her suddenly began merging into her lane. Pam honked and hit the brakes, swerving into a turn lane to avoid getting hit by the Wayward Cadillac. The SUV driver kept right on going. Ben was driving in New York City when he noticed an NYPD vehicle driving along with no lights on. As Ben began passing the police car, the officer made a sudden U-turn without signaling, plowing into Ben's Lexus before immediately activating the car's emergency lighting. Notice that the cop car had no lights on at all before the brakes were applied, which illuminated the brake lights. Then it turned with still no headlights, turn signals, or emergency lights active. It wasn't until after the impact that the officer activated the emergency lights, but Ben told us they said in their official report that the emergency lights were already active and that Ben had failed to yield. The NYPD sent Ben a bill for $14,000 to repair their police car. After he sent them a copy of his dashcam footage, they backed off before covering Ben's $7,500 repair bill. If not for the video, Ben would have been on the hook for both repair bills. If that doesn't convince you to get a dashcam, I don't know what will. Check the description for our recommendations. Joshua was riding his Harley home from work when he pulled up to a traffic light. With a pedestrian making his way across the crosswalk, Joshua witnessed this week's Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Both Joshua and the pedestrian were dumbstruck when a white Model Y cruised right through the red light. Joshua proceeded home very cautiously, knowing the Tesla driver could have killed him if he'd been just one lane over. Steve was going 55 miles per hour in his Mazda CX-5 when a silver SUV suddenly pulled out in front of him. Steve swerved into the oncoming turn lane to avoid rear-ending the SUV at highway speed before continuing on his way home. James was driving when another driver turned in front of him. Police, firefighters, and paramedics all responded to the collision. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Repairing the damage to James' RAV4 cost $8,000. This emitter spotted a speeding driver who seems a little too relaxed to be driving on the highway. Our submitter told us the other driver had his leg hanging out of the window while holding his phone and speeding down the highway. I wonder if he knew he was driving. Travis was on his way to a home improvement store when a Civic driver jumped out from between other traffic, almost causing a collision. Travis laid on the horn while swerving to avoid the Honda bump. If you're new to our channel, a Honda bump is when, you know what, it's a thing, just Google it. Thankfully, no contact was made. Travis grabbed a snack and calmed down at a nearby gas station before continuing to the store, then safely heading home. Sebastian is a tow truck driver who was on his way to pick up a stolen Hyundai for the Washington State Patrol. As he arrived on the scene, he activated his overhead hazard lights, but that wasn't enough for the driver behind him. The driver of a Saturn Ion ran into Sebastian's tow truck, then backed up and ran into another car in reverse. Of course, the state trooper witnessed the whole thing before giving the Saturn driver a citation. Because the tow truck was considered an emergency vehicle in a work zone, the Saturn driver's ticket was immediately doubled and ineligible to be waived or reduced. Thankfully, the tow truck was only barely affected by the impact. Silas was driving to work when he turned a corner to find an oncoming minivan in his lane. Silas swerved off the road to avoid a collision as the other driver veered back to his side of the road. No collision occurred, but Silas told us he's glad he had a dash cam so he could go back and see what had happened. Larry was driving down a main road when another driver failed to yield and drove across the street in front of him. Larry slammed on his brakes, certain he'd hit the other car. Thankfully, he was able to stop in time. He told us, "There are so many bad drivers, everyone needs a dash cam." This submitter was driving to his girlfriend Darina's school when the driver of an Opel backed out of a side street and right into a parked Honda SUV. Our submitter told us the collision left a huge black mark on the side of the Honda and ripped off the rear bumper cover, but the Opel driver took off. Our submitter left the Honda owner a note. The Honda owner contacted him later and he was able to provide him with a copy of this dashcam footage so he could pursue the Opel driver. This submitter was stuck in off-ramp traffic when he spotted a driver who'd missed their exit backing down the shoulder to escape traffic. Well, that's one way to get out of traffic, one we do not recommend. Our submitter asked us to shout out his wife, Tina. Stay safe out there, everybody. Don't forget to send in your security camera videos to our newest channel, Wham Bam Security Cam, for a chance to win a Wham Bam hoodie. There are only 4 left to give away. Good luck!
Wham Bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.